Hi, everyone, and welcome to the verdict. So, what I want to do here is I want to, take your live questions and comments like we've done before, but I actually want to be able to maybe look at some verdicts and then give you your answer with actual verdict. So, I have the database open. So, I want to see if somebody whoever's up for it can maybe tell me a little bit about their case, if they have a case, or if you're interested in anything like a particular type of injury or a particular type of case, right? Because I could search by an injury like a fusion surgery, a brain injury. I could search in a particular state or city, and I could also search by a case type like a car accident or whatever kind of case there is. So yeah, I'm happy to do that. So I thought it would be an interesting new idea for a live because we've done a bunch of lives and they've always been people putting in their comments or their questions, and I was trying to answer their questions, which is good. We can continue to do those, and those I call those raw law. But this one I had an idea for it, so I was going to test it out. So this is the first one. This is like a pilot. So this one basically it's called the verdict. So you tell me about a case that you're interested in, how it happened, let's say a car crash in, Seattle, and it was a rear end. And as a result of that, there's a discectomy. And then I could look quickly at Seattle discectomies and then tell you what the verdicts have been. Yeah. So here's a come along with Uncle Joe says hi, howdy, hi, how are you? Crystal says, is this live? Yeah, it is. It's live. I'm here live. And Rob says, hey, does the insurance company always send you to an independent medical examiner before or after deposition? So yeah, usually if it's a liability IME, it's going to be after deposition. Yeah, usually it's going to be after. And then Crystal says, hi. Yeah, hi, how are you? So yeah, let me know if you have anything for this. This one is called the verdict, right? So what we're doing is we're trying to actually look at verdicts. So like I said, I have this database open. So if anyone wants to tell me, about, it doesn't have to be like, you don't have to obviously say your name or anything like, just very general. Like for example, a rear end crash in a certain city, right? It could be New York or Florida, wherever. And then like, a little bit about the injury, like a fusion or a traumatic brain injury. And I could do a little verdict analysis and maybe tell you what the averages are, what the high is, what the low is, and also perhaps even get into a few cases to see what those issues were, depending on how much time we have. Oh, here's a Marquita's here. She has SI joint fusion in Alabama, trip and fall in Publix, aisle obstruction, ADA violation, and she says I have cerebral palsy. Okay, yeah, so let's do that one. Let's do that one. Okay, so I'll go to the state. I'll go to Alabama. I'll put in SI joint fusion. I don't know if you want me to. I don't know how many cases there are in Alabama. Well, there aren't that many cases in Alabama. I mean, the database only has 219 cases in Alabama. So I don't want to, maybe put. We could put premises, but first let's start general. Let's just put SI joint fusion. SI joint fusion. See what that sacroiliac joint. Actually, I don't see any results for sacroiliac for some reason out in Alabama anyway. But they must have had some cases like that. You could also look at type of injury, and once you jump into type of injury, you can then once you get into the type of injury, you can then like choose different types of injuries. But I don't know if SI joint fusion is going to be in there. I'm not sure if it's going to be in there. Let's see. me see again. So in Alabama, type of injury. So it's a type of surgery, obviously. So under surgery, they do have arthroscopic debridement. I don't see SI joint fusion. They do have like discectomy surgery, things like that. And then SI joint, yeah, that's the sacroiliac joint. That's kind of like the back, right? The lower back. So under back, they have, yeah, I don't see that one. But yeah, unfortunately, I don't see that one. But like maybe I could do it in other places. I could just do the sacroiliac joint and see what that shows in other places, just generally across the country. Sacroiliac joint fusion or SI joint fusion. Yeah, I don't know. This one, yeah, sorry. This one is a little bit tough. I'd have to probably do a little more research because for some reason it's not pulling up this one. But I'll do a little research on that and I'll get back to you. I know I'm going to give you a call later too. So we'll talk about that. Okay, and then James says, my lawyer wants my medical records and invoices by January 15th. What is he trying to do? I had one surgery on my knee, but I need a knee replacement still. So if he wants to get your medical records, he's probably trying to put it together a settlement package, I'm guessing. And Crystal says, any verdicts for CRPS in 2024? Yeah, let me take a look. So I'll just take a look everywhere. CRPS should have a bunch of verdicts. Yeah, actually, if you search CRPS, oh yeah, here's this one. This one gives us results. Yeah, if you search CRPS, you come up with a bunch of verdicts. You know, it actually throws back 186 results, and it looks like the average verdict is close to 3 million. It's 2,997,000. The highest one is actually for 58 million. Although there was, I guess that's like the value range, right? The actual highest one was actually 261 million. That was the case that was in that Netflix documentary, Kowalski. That one actually had 260 million. So, but let's see the recent ones. So if you say, but you could sort it by date. So that'll be the most recent. Yeah, so there was actually a case out of California in Los Angeles in May of 2024. And that one involved CRPS. And yeah, so we could actually look at that one just briefly. What happened there was it's titled Yard Supervisor Knew Water Test Was Performed, but the roof of the train was not dry. So what happened was on February in 2016, the plaintiff, who was 38, he was a laborer, and he was working at a manufacturing yard, and he slipped and fell on top of a train. And so there was a test performed on the train, and I guess they were trying to see. So I'm not sure exactly, but basically, he was a slip and fall, and there were like 3 phases to the trial. I guess there were some legal issues. It was a little bit complicated, but there was a water test on the roof of the train, and they said it wasn't cleaned and dried properly, so that's why I guess he fell while he was doing his inspections. And then the injury was a microfracture in the left foot. He went back to work the next day, but then he went to a foot doctor 2 months after the incident, and he had to have foot surgery. And then he was unable to return to work, and then he was diagnosed with, by multiple doctors, with complex regional pain syndrome, the CRPS. and he claimed debilitating pain in his left foot. He could no longer work, and he sought recovery for his past and future pain and suffering, and lost wages and medical costs. And so the result in this case was actually a pretty large amount. It was 58 million total, 58,358,000. It was broken down as 54,000 for compensatory damages and 4.2 million in punitive or exemplary damages. So yeah, so the demand was 20 million. The offer was only 750,000. The trial took 2 months, and it was a 12-0 decision by the jury. So that was one case. But yeah, there were like a bunch of cases. There's another one in 2020. The next one actually is 2023. That's the Kowalski one. That's the one that was 260 million. There was one in October of 2023. That was a defense verdict, 0. And then there's one out of Texas in September of 23 for 556,000. So they're going to be very different. I mean, of course, some of them could be like multiple millions, and some are just. I mean, I see here's one out of Queens County where there was a crush injury to the wrist, but the defense argued that injury did not cause CRPS, and that one was 150,000. That was in August of 2023. So those are like the most recent ones. Oh, here's one out of Philadelphia in Pennsylvania in June of 2023, and it was 5 million. So they kind of run the gamut. They have to kind of get a little bit more specific. Okay, and then Joe says, the other party extended the discovery 2 times and made an excuse for the IME appointment, but they still haven't made an appointment. How many times can the judge allow them to extend? I mean, usually just once or twice. They're not going to really allow them to extend too much. Okay, and Rob here says, T-bone crash, Des Moines, Iowa, knee injuries. Okay, yeah, I could do that one for sure. Let me just make it general like that. Let me just search it general. If you tell me the type of injury, like if it's an arthroscopic surgery, that could be a little better. Although places like Iowa, there might not be that many in the database. Like Alabama only had a few hundred. Yeah, Iowa, I see, only has 120 cases total. So we could say Iowa, I'll put motor vehicle. So we see it's a car crash case, just a motor vehicle case. And then we could say that it's a knee injury. So maybe I have to take out that it's a motor vehicle case. Let me just put that it's a knee injury. See what's going on with knee injuries in Iowa. Because there aren't that many cases. So when you start putting too many things, then it excludes everything, That's the problem. Yeah, actually, I don't see that. There aren't too many knee injuries in Iowa. At least not in the database right now. But if we go to, maybe we have to just look at motor vehicle cases in Iowa. If we look at motor vehicle cases in Iowa, they're only 13 results, so there aren't that many results total. But there was let's see, and we sort it by date, so we see what's the most recent ones. Here's one, actually, it's not that recent. It's from 2016. It's a rollover crash, and the injuries are degloving injuries, nose fractures, and fractures to the face. And that one was 1.559 million, 1.5 million, almost 1.6 million. So that one was a 2008 crash. There's also a case where a vehicle was broadsided and knocked a motorcyclist unconscious. The injuries there were brain injury and traumatic brain injury, 1.18 million. Then there's one for a passenger blaming a car maker for a crash that rendered her paralyzed. And that one was in the Southern District of Iowa in the federal court. And that one was actually a defense verdict, so there was 0 recovery. And then there's a case where a tire tread separated before a minivan rolled over and it ejected 7 people. That was from 2010. And their injuries were like skull fractures, fractured neck, pretty bad injuries, quadriplegia. That one was a total of 32 million. That's probably the biggest one. Yeah, that is the biggest one. And there's one from a family said a postman caused a fatal collision with a motorcycle, and the injuries there were but that one was 4.6 million, also in federal court. And then there are a few smaller ones. Here's one just for 5,000, 5,800. One for 238,000. That was a impaired driver alcohol brought by an alcohol case with a car crash, and the injury there was actually, it was a wrongful death case, but the verdict was 238,000, so it wasn't that high. So yeah, not that many. I mean, it depends on the place. Some places like New York, I think when you search baseline, you just go to cases, it has like 30,000. Whereas, you know, Iowa only had like 100, so there aren't going to be that many. Okay. Cole says, for my case, judge wants the doctor to testify. I don't have money to pay for the doctor, $4,500 for a deposition. What can I do? I mean, usually the lawyers will pay for that. The lawyer should front the expenses and pay for that. And then basically, you know, then later, if you win the big amount, then the lawyer takes their expenses back. That's usually how it works. And Come Along with Uncle Joe says, LA County, California, trip and fall, rotator, and labrum tear with anchors. Okay, let's take a quick look. Let's see. So we'll go back to search. We'll clear everything out. And we'll say California, Los Angeles, right? Well, LA County. And let me see, type of injury, shoulder. Under shoulder, they have categories. Rotator cuff injury, they do have that with a tear. Okay, let's say rotator cuff with a tear. And labrum. I don't know if it says, if it gives us labrum as well. I don't see labrum, but yeah, the rotator, I think it just calls it rotator cuff here. And you could also search keywords, but sometimes when you do that, you lose a lot of results. So yeah, this actually gives us a lot of cases. Rotator cuff injury with a tear. Maybe I could also, this gives us 128 results. So maybe I could also add another one. Maybe I could add a surgery. Let's see if it has something under surgery for shoulder. It doesn't actually have shoulder. I don't know why. It does have like arthroscopy, which I think is what you had, right? A type of arthroscopy, but with anchors. Well, let's see. Labrum to, yeah. Okay, let's look at some of these. It says that the average result is 1.1 million. And let's see, I'll go by date so we could look at the most recent ones. The most recent one is actually from October of 2024, late October, so just a few months ago. That one was a rotator cuff injury as a result of a premises liability case. And you said your case is also like a trip and fall, so that's similar. That one, unfortunately, though, was a defense verdict. It was 0. And I think because the defense claimed that the injuries were pre-existing, and I guess they believe that. But here's another one from August of 2024, and it was a rotator cuff injury. It was a supraspinatus muscle and tendon tear, and there was an arthroscopic surgery. This one was a motor vehicle case, but it was a $2,045,000 verdict for the plaintiff. And then there was another one in July of 2024, also a rotator cuff tear for the shoulder, Los Angeles. Premises liability, it was a trip and fall in a store. Someone was walking near the refrigerated aisle section of a supermarket and fell. And the injury, there was a shoulder surgery. There was a rotator cuff tear. And this one was a $2.4 million verdict. But this person also had a lumbar fusion, so that probably, increased the value. Yeah, so I mean, there's a bunch of cases. Let me see if I could go back. If I remove the rotator cuff, if I remove the the categories and just type in something, let me see if that works. Yeah, for some reason it doesn't show too many when you just try to search on your own and you remove their categories. It doesn't show as many. It does say you can search 2 terms or yeah, I don't know why. I have to play with this a little more, but that's some of them. Let's see. And then Joe says, "Hi, Arkady. It's been 2 years since my slip and fall at a casino. Recent findings from an EMG are saying that I have perennial nerve damage in my left knee causing drop foot. Can you give me an idea of value for that?" Well, I mean, yeah, that should be pretty big if it's a dropped foot. That should be also, like we were doing some of the CRPS cases. It should be like into the high 6 figures, if not 7 figures, if it's a dropped foot. That's pretty serious. And RG Society says, with the facts that we have, could we have possible amount for a verdict or settlement? Driver accepted responsibility for the accident. Insurance accepted 1 million policy. Yeah, I would have to know a little bit more about the injuries, though, in order to tell you, the injuries. The responsibility is good. I mean, the fact that they're at fault gives you liability, but then the amount would depend on the damages. And then SG says, is it possible that the defendants in a TBI case settle before a deposition? Yeah, absolutely, it could be. But if they're not even taking your deposition and it's like a complicated traumatic brain injury case, then they may offer you less money. It might not be as much of a settlement as after a deposition. And Steve, does anyone have any advice on an 18-wheeler that hit and ran, but I only got the trailer tag, and the Texas Department of Transportation only could provide me with the ownership information of the trailer? Well, yeah, I mean, I would just, speak to a local personal injury lawyer. If you have the trailer, you could probably, file a lawsuit against the trailer and conduct some discovery and then ask them, well, where was the trailer on the date and time, right? And then you find out, hey, well, then you get the tractor, then you sue them. It shouldn't be that, or maybe the police could figure it out somehow, although they're probably not going to do it. But I guess that happens. I think a truck accident attorney should be able to help you with that, because that probably happens a lot. Because that's what you see. You see the back of the trailer. You're not it's a crash and then they leave. There's no way to go around and just get the front of the tractor. So, and Nayslayer says, Fairfax County, Virginia, 2-level ACDF DUI, driver pled guilty. Okay, so let's see. Let's do that one. Let me go back to search. I'll do Virginia. Virginia might not have that many cases. Actually, no, it does. It has about almost 5,000. And you said there was a, okay, 2-level ACDF. Yeah, I know that should be in there under surgery or under neck. Oh yeah, it does have fusion, cervical fusion. You said 2-level, right? It actually does have, it has a 2-level cervical fusion as well. So if we, I mean, you said Fairfax, right? Let's go to Fairfax. Okay, yeah, actually, this only gives us 17 documents, so it kind of like hones in. This is good. So yeah, so okay, let's see. By it's not that high. Like the highest amount is 450,000. The average is 146,000, and the lowest is actually only $500. Let's do it by most recent. It shows one case here where there's a neck fusion, 2-level, Fairfax County, 450,000. It was a car crash, interstate collision, and it just says, yeah, herniated disc, C5, C6, C6, C7. That was the fusion. There's another one, 300,000, neck fusion, motor vehicle crash, rear end, and it was just, it says neck fusion with C1, C2 instability. Yeah, so another one, intersection crash involving alcohol, 245,000. That was a settlement. It was a motor vehicle, and it says it was a discectomy surgery to the neck. And then another one for 185,000. Then there's one for only $500. Not sure how that happened. One for 175. So this tends to be a more conservative county. Yeah, because, you know, nationally, I would say, you know, like New York, the verdicts are much higher, usually into the millions. So this one is much more conservative. RG Society says demand letter for 1.5 million. Oh, you have disc herniations, epidurals, pain management, fusion. Oh, okay. If you have a fusion, it should be bigger. I think, you know, it should be a bigger case. If you only have like $1 million in coverage or 1.5 million, you should be able to. If you have a good trial lawyer, you should be able to take the full $1 million. I just settled the case with the fusion. We got 1.5. That was a settlement. So usually that's what they go for, something around there. I mean, it could be more, like we had one 3.5, we had one 2.8, but usually that's what it should be. So if you have $1 million policy, I think you said, right? So yeah, it shouldn't be a problem. $1 million policy. You said the responsibility is there. So with the fusion, the way to add more value to it would be, you know, obviously the pain and suffering from the actual medical records. You could add future medical costs to it, right? Things like prescriptions, going to the doctor again, getting future MRIs, revision surgeries at the adjacent levels above and below, because that's medically necessary. So all that adds up. Just the future medical costs could be like into the millions. Like my case that I got 2.2 million on, I had 2.6 million in future medical costs from my economist and the doctors. The way it works is the doctors give you the medical recommendations. That's known as the medical foundation, right? And then the life care planner or the economist can then talk about costs and then reduce it to present value and give you all the costs. Usually, like a life care planner or somebody, unless a doctor does it, but tells you about what the costs are in that city for those procedures. They also go to like databases and they research it. So that's usually how it's done. So yeah, I don't think you should have a problem. As long as you have a strong trial lawyer on the case, you shouldn't have a problem recovering the full policy. And I see there's other injuries. There's like arthroscopic surgeries. Yeah, that's a good case. You should be able to recover it. I don't know if it said which city it's in. I don't know if you said that, but as long as you're not in Fairfax, Virginia, don't be in Fairfax, Virginia. That seems very cheap. But anywhere else, I think it would be fine. Okay, let's see. Devin says L5-S1 moderate herniated disc with injections and 4 months of massage and physical therapy. Average claim for that. Yeah, so I mean, it would depend on like where, right? Because I would have to know where, because an L5 injury, that's a lower back injury, L5-S1, that's actually the last disc. So a herniated disc with injections and 4 months of therapy. I mean, that could be like, anywhere from, I would say 50,000 up to even hundreds of thousands, but it just depends. I could do a search if you told me like where. And then Bagged Boy says, my lawyer is sending the demand letter out, but is filing a lawsuit at the same time because he's sure they aren't going to make a good faith offer. Is that good? I mean, it is what it is kind of thing. If he knows they're not going to make a good faith offer, then why is he even trying to settle? Just file a lawsuit and then, make them pay basically through litigation. And then as you do that, then you could revisit settlement once you have everything done. And then look, you tell them, pay me X, or if you don't, then I'm going to court. I'm going to get more. And then Thomas says, I'm here in Florida, and there's a car accident with a $2 million policy, lumbar and cervical percutaneous discectomy, multiple bulging disc and herniated disc, physical therapy, 100% at fault. Right. So, yeah, I mean, I could do a search, but I would need to know like what city in Florida, probably, or what county. I could do a search for that. Yeah, just let me know. And Marquita says SI joint fusion is similar to a spinal fusion, but with some distinctions. Could you look up back surgery, disability, violation, and premises liability? Yeah, sure. Let's take a look. There just aren't that many cases, unfortunately, in Alabama. Did we look at any of those cases? Let me see. Alabama, there's only like 200 cases total. I guess if we look at injury and we say back, I don't know if there's going to be, there's fracture of the back, herniated discs, lower back. I guess we could say lower back injuries. And then we can go to surgery and see if they have anything with surgery. See, if some of the boxes you can't check. So if you can't check it, that means there are no cases for it. There's discectomy cases. Let me go back to neck. Oh, no, actually not neck. Lower back. Maybe lumbar. Maybe it's under lumbar. Let me see lumbar. Yeah, it's weird. The way they have these categories is a little off. I think they have to fix it. It's not like even. Sometimes they have it. Sometimes they don't. I think that, yeah, like for example, lumbar fusion in Alabama, there are no cases. So I guess they just don't have any cases for lumbar fusion. But let me search this. There's only 6 results for this. This is just what we talked about, right? Lower back injury with possible discectomy or some kind of surgery, and in Alabama. Well, here's a case. An impaired driver caused a life-altering injury to 2 people. But this was also a brain injury. There were fractures, and it went for $3.8 million. This was in 2015. Let me see if I do it by date. Most recent one that is in this database is 2021, and it's lower back injury with a discectomy, 250,000. This is in Cleburne County, Cleburne, Cleburne. Here's another one, rear end collision necessitated back surgery, 150,000 in Calhoun County. This is in 2020. And what happened here, there was a lower back injury, and it was like I said, a rear end collision. And L4, L5, S1. So that's kind of, S1 is the sacrum, right? So it's close to the sacroiliac joint. So this one was 150. Here's another one, 162,500, Mobile County, also 2020, discectomy, and it was a SUV passenger attributed a surgery to the rear end crash. And here's one, rear ender caused a herniation and impairment. There was a surgery including a discectomy, and it went for 900,000, and also in Mobile. And actually the herniation was at L5S1, which is also sacroiliac. So it's kind of close to the SI joint. I know just from, speaking to people, there was an SI joint case out of California that I tried to help this lady with, and I think she settled her case for like 300,000 or 400,000. So yeah, they can go, I think, a few $100,000. It could even be closer to $1 million, like you see this one, 900. Here's another one, verdict for the plaintiff, 300,000 in Montgomery County in Alabama. Lower back injury. This was actually a medical case, though, medical malpractice. It's a little different. Then there's the 3.8. That's an impaired driver caused life-altering injuries in 2 people. That had the brain injury, the fractures, and the discectomy. So that might be a little different because it had a lot of injuries. Yeah, so those are the cases in Alabama. And yeah, those are the Alabama cases. Christopher says, hi, Arkady. Hope you had a great holiday. Appreciate all you do. Hope we can touch base again. One question I have when we chat is if the doctor's previous med mal cases can be brought up. Yeah, so I mean, probably not, right? Unless there was like a finding. Sometimes if there's a finding against the doctor already that they're, or unless you could somehow tie it in, right? Then you can bring it up. But if it's just a case that somebody accused him, but he won the case, usually you can't bring that up. And they tend to focus on like what happened in this case, in your case, like what he actually did or what he didn't do, right? The departures from good and accepted medical practice. They tend to focus on that specifically. And Thomas says, what's a good settlement? We demanded the policy, but they haven't even made a first offer. My lawyer says they will sue soon. Oh, that's the Florida case? I mean, percutaneous discectomy, I can't tell you in Florida necessarily, right? Because I'm not too familiar. If you tell me what city, I can maybe search. But like in New York, I've settled those anywhere from like 300,000 even up to, we got one for like close to 600,000. So usually they go for pretty good numbers. Brandon says, how long does it take for the sheriff's office to serve someone? $1.5 million policy in Tampa, multiple injections to the neck and back, plus 2 discectomy surgeries. I mean, to serve someone, usually we do it with the process server. It just takes like a day. I mean, it just takes like whatever, however they do it, right? Basically, it's a piece of paper. You just have to go to their house and give it to them. So as quickly as they do it, it could be in a day, it could be in an hour. It doesn't really take, I mean, usually they have to serve them according to the CPLR, the Civil Practice Law and Rules, according to the law. So usually you have like 30 days, 20 days. So if you're using the sheriff to do it, they probably have to follow the civil law in your state as well. But in terms of the cases, I could take a quick look. Oh, let's see. So you're saying Tampa, Florida, and injections plus discectomy surgeries? Let's take a look. Let's go to Florida. there was somebody else who had Florida, right? Thomas had Florida too. Florida, let me see, county. I don't know if Tampa's a county or if that's just a city. I'm not too familiar with the names in Florida. I don't see it. They do it by county here. I'd probably just search. Oh, Hillsborough, right? Is that right? Hillsborough County. Okay. So let's search the county. County, Florida. And you said discectomy? I don't know if I could search. Does it say where the discectomy was, like neck or back? I could try just saying discectomy, see if that discectomy. Yeah, I mean that gives us some results, just discectomy. So yeah, there's some results here. I mean, the average is actually 828,000. If we go by the date, there's one from June of 2024. That one, there was a herniated disc at L5S1 with a discectomy. It was a left turn car crash case, and that one went for 525,000. There's also one from November of 2023, but that one was zero. That was also a discectomy with a. They found the crash did not cause the new spinal injuries, because I guess they had some injuries and they weren't able to prove that the crash caused the new injuries. But here's one out of June of 2022, also Hillsborough County, which is Tampa. And this one was a discectomy to the neck, I believe. It was C5, C6, C6, C7, but they also had herniations at L4, L5, and L5S1, so also lumbar, lower back. And the total verdict was $3.392 million. That was a truck crash, a rear ender. And it says the injury was basically epidurals, steroids. Yeah, that's basically the injury, though, like the one I described, right? With the they had a fusion too in the lumbar. But yeah, that's pretty good. Here's one from December of 2019 in Hillsborough, and it was a $1,009,428 result. Auto accident led to spinal fusion, and the injury there was a discectomy as well. And there's one for zero. I mean, you're always going to get a few for zero. You know, it's never always everyone in the millions. I wish, but that's not how it works. Here's one for 1.3 million, discectomy, C4, C5, C6, C7 herniations. Also a rotator cuff tear with the supraspinatus tendon. And there was an arthroscopy surgery for the shoulder as well as the discectomy. And a total of 1.3 million. That was a verdict. That was in Hillsborough as well. And then there's another one for zero, one for 9,000. That's kind of low. And then there's one for zero, another one for zero, one for 571,000. So yeah, they kind of, they're always gonna like run the gamut like that. Have a lot of differences. Mark says craniocervical instability, atlantoaxial instability, Florida. Any verdict search returns. Yeah, let's take a look. We're already in Florida, so let me just go back and just change it. So I get rid of Hillsborough. I'll just search all of Florida, because that's a very specific injury. So I don't know if that'll be in there, but let's see. Craniocervical. And then the other one was atlantoaxial. I mean, I see like two documents for cervical instability cases in Florida, there's one involving cervical spine instability. It was a hospital that negligently, it was a medical malpractice, negligence by the hospital, and it resulted in some kind of cervical spine instability with, I guess, loss of control of the right arm and tremors. And that one was a verdict for $11,018,082. And there was another one with the cervical fusion where a landlord denied that the fall was on the stairs or that it was due to a code violation, and there was some cervical instability, but that one actually was a defense verdict. It was 0. So not too much for that specific. When you deal with, let me see, when you deal with cervical stuff, I guess you go to set this. When you deal with cervical, you go to, like, say, Florida. Yeah, there's almost 10,000 cases in Florida, but when you go to, I guess, cervical, it has a section for neck. So then when you go under neck, it has like general stuff like cervical disc injury, fracture, cervical fusion. Like, for example, if you search cervical fusion, myelopathy, things like that. It doesn't have instability, but, like, for example, if you search cervical fusion, there's 334 results. The average is 1.35 million. And if you search by the most recent ones, you see here's one for 5.7 million out of Polk County, Florida, with a fusion, and it was a collision. This is from November of 2024, fairly recent. Another one for 4.2 million in June of 2024, cervical fusion. One for 0, one for 166,000, cervical fusion. Janitor blamed restaurant for slip on a spill, slipped on a spill at a Chick-fil-A. It was only 166,000. Another for 0, another for 0, one for 8,034,000. That one was a cervical fusion, as well as other injuries. There were rotator cuff tears, mental psychological injuries. It was actually a case out of Alachua County. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that correctly. Alachua. Alachua. Yeah, that was a big case. I actually know the plaintiff's attorney in that case. He's a good attorney. He's like a national attorney, a good trial attorney. He's written some books actually about how to try cases. He got 8 million, so that's a good result. Here's one with an SUV passenger with a cervical fusion, 347,000. So, they're gonna. Here's one for 2.9 million, cervical fusion. This one is in Orange County. One for 922,000. So yeah, they pretty much. And then SG says, my deposition is May 12th. Can the defendants settle before deposition? TBI case. Yeah, they can. I think we did that question, right? They can settle, but remember, if it's a TBI case, the amount that they're going to offer you before a deposition, because the deposition is like their first chance to even speak with you, right? To ask you, like, who are you? What happened? Like, what are your injuries? How have your activities been curtailed? Now, if you have a bad brain injury, they also want to speak to someone else, right? Like your wife or your husband, your friends, family, and get like a sense and look at your medical records, right? So it's like their first chance to even speak with you. So if you wanted to just give you some money before they even speak to you, they can do that, but it's going to be low. Whereas if they verify everything and they've had a chance to question you and you've been prepared, now you're like moving, towards the finish line. So it's going to be bigger numbers. So I don't really recommend it, especially in a TBI case. in another kind of case, like, cases that have limited value, like a, torn meniscus, right? What it's worth, like 100, 200, 300, or like a soft tissue herniation, right? Somebody has a herniated disc, but all they did was go to chiropractic adjustment. Sure, you could settle that before a deposition. You're going to get whatever, 12,000. But a TBI could be multiple millions, so you don't want to do that before a deposition, usually. Sasha says, "Hi, Arkady. What are your thoughts about hospitals understating or lying about injuries sustained from a car accident?" Well, I mean, usually the hospital's not going to tell you all the injuries, right? Because the hospital just is basically, it's like triage. You're hurt. You go to the emergency room. They just want to get you better to the point where there's no emergency anymore. And then you have to follow up with a private doctor, physical therapy. So you can't really rely on the hospital records that much. Now, you do want to probably have complaints. Like if you're claiming a back injury, you want to have in the hospital record that you mentioned, hey, my back hurts. Now, sometimes after a car crash, people don't say my back hurts because the back doesn't hurt until 2 weeks later. So it won't be in the hospital record. And that's a known thing too. So, but yeah, I mean, it happens that I don't know if they lie about it, but they do sometimes understate things, especially with like brain injury cases. Actually, hospitals, they don't really, they don't know what's going on in your brain. They just kind of make sure you're not going to die. And they say you hit your head. They're not going to be able to diagnose a brain injury. They kind of send you home. So then if you end up going to like a medical legal team and seeing a neurologist, neuroradiologist, you're going to get diagnosed. But if you don't, you're not going to get diagnosed. And then that becomes a problem. And then Marquita says, if there aren't many or any relevant cases for comparison, is that a bad thing for the plaintiff? No, not necessarily, right? I mean, the only good thing about having cases is that you want to like find out what the case could be worth. But I mean, as long as you have a good trial lawyer, you want to make sure that your lawyer has a good record of results, and then you go in and you present your case, and then you show them why your case is worth what you say it's worth. And then Mike says, I never hear about settlement awards in Massachusetts. Is it an insurance-friendly state? Massachusetts, yeah, I mean, it's kind of tough, but no, there are results in Massachusetts. I mean, there was actually a case in Western Massachusetts. I think I talked about it. It was like $9 million. It was during COVID. It was for a wrongful death, and I think it was like the highest verdict in Massachusetts. So there could be nice amounts in Massachusetts, depending on the injury, of course, and other factors. But yeah, no, I think it's possible. And Deepak says 2019 rear-ended, neck ACDF surgery, 3 injections, summary judgment denied, and appealed. What is the next step? So yeah, so you mean summary judgment denied summary judgment for you? So then you just have to like go to trial basically, and then if it's a rear end, you're still going to probably win. And when you say city, do you mean like New York City, or is it a different city? Because I could do a search, but I would need to know which city. But yeah, I mean, that's a good case. You have a ACDF surgery. So in New York, that's usually many, many millions. And Jonathan says, hello, Mr. Frekhtman. We spoke over the phone 2 months ago. I got rear-ended by a truck. Chubb Insurance, 20 million policy, 3 of us at the time of accident this coming March. Going to be 2 years almost. And he says, I had neck fusion, lower back laminectomy, and a knee surgery. We won liability. I already did the deposition, and all the doctors, we almost at the last stage of the case. Now the last minute defense wants me to do another IME. Oh yeah, no, I'm sorry to hear that. But yeah, that's a good case. You're gonna do well. You're gonna do well with that case. Don't worry about it. Yeah, I remember we spoke. I think I remember the case. He's saying, why is it taking so long? Yeah, maybe text me 347-566-9595. We could speak again. I'm happy to help. It's hard for me to say why it's taking long. That's more of like a case-specific thing. So I can give you like a consult and review the case again in the court's computer to see what's going on. And then Christopher says, reason I'd like to bring up the doctor's previous med mal cases is I'm suing the practice and they keep allowing this guy to screw up 3 lawsuits plus a 4th for my procedure. No, I understand. Of course, that makes sense. And Trey says, somebody had him sign. Had him sign, but then decided not to take him on the next day. Oh yeah, well, if a lawyer decides not to take you, then no, they don't have any portion of the settlement. They're just not going to be the lawyer. I'm not sure why they decided that. You have to ask them. They should be able to explain it to you. But if you need help, just text me. If they decided not to, maybe I could find someone for you. I'm happy to help with that. Someone else for you. Jonathan, we did, right? Planet Warrior. Mike Barber, Massachusetts. Oh, here, Massachusetts. Value of a tibial plateau fracture with ORIF and separate surgery for ACL. Yeah, that should be pretty high. I mean, like in New York, that would be tibial plateau fractures usually with ORIF, usually from 500 to $1 million. But let's take a look. Let's take a quick look at Massachusetts. Massachusetts might be one of these places where there aren't that many cases. There's a total of 7,500 cases. So we'll say knee injury. Tibial plateau fracture. Well, they have actually they do have fracture of the tibial plateau. So we could start with that. You said with ORIF and separate surgery for ACL. Yeah, they do have anterior cruciate ligament also. So let's see what that gives us. It gives us 50 cases. The average is 286,000. If we go by date, the most recent is from 21. It was a fall from a platform causing a knee injury in a restaurant. It was 106,000. Then there's some kind of something with a softball game, but they said contact is expected in a softball game, so it was a defense verdict, 0. Another one for 0. One for 75,000, where a motorcyclist got into a crash and had a tibial plateau fracture. A grocery store was found liable for a woman's fall with a tibial plateau, 275,000. Here's one for a fall down in a dog park, and the liability was disputed. It was 0. Here's one where a pilot claimed the seat slipped and it led to a stall and they caused the plane to nosedive and crash. And that one was 1.7 million. And one of the injuries was a tibial plateau. There were other injuries too in that one. There was like quadriplegia, paralysis. That's a serious case. Here's one with a fall on snow, 20,000. An auto case, a rear end with a tibial plateau fracture, but it went for 0. Another one for 0, construction site. Dram shop auto accident with alcohol, also 0. Yeah, I guess Massachusetts is tough. A lot of zeros. Auto accident, chain reaction, tibial. Oh, this was the ACL tear, also 0. Here's one, single vehicle passenger injured, 190,000. Another one for 0, another one for 0. Oh, here's one, fall down work site, painter was injured, ACL tear. And this one was with a knee surgery, 775,000. This is in Suffolk County, Massachusetts. So that's not bad. Auto accident with a tibial plateau fracture, 150,000. Auto accident parking lot tibial plateau fracture, 45,000. And so yeah, they kind of like, run the gamut. Here's a question. Manhattan, New York, shoulder arthroscopic and bicep repair. Manhattan. So let's do that one. Manhattan. If we go to New York. And you're talking about New York County. Manhattan is New York County. And arthroscopic shoulder. Was it a rotator cuff? I'm probably thinking it's probably a rotator cuff, right? It's the shoulder. Probably an arthroscopic. Yeah, arthroscopic. Let's see what it shows us. Actually, there's a lot of cases. I mean, just rotator cuff injury with a tear and arthroscopy in New York County results in 383 cases. That's a lot of cases. The average is 1.8 million. But let's see if we do it by date. Here's one where there was a spine and shoulder injury in a car crash. This was 225,000. This was in April of 24. There's one for like somebody claiming an ex-girlfriend's brother hit him with a vehicle, and that was only 50,000 in February of 24. That was arthroscopic. Here's one where a plaintiff fell off a truck after being hit by a pallet jack, and it was there were a lot of injuries. There was actually a tibial plateau fracture, but there was also a shoulder arthroscopy, and there were pins and screws, and this one was 4.2 million. It's a pretty good case, actually. Here's one. Truck driver had multiple surgeries after falling into an excavation, and that one had, see, they had a lot of injuries, but it also had the shoulder, and that one was 5 million. So some of these are kind of like you have to exclude the other injuries in order to get a proper valuation. Yeah, most of them, they have other injuries too. So it's kind of hard to, just the shoulder. Here's one. I mean, it's the knee and the shoulder, and it was 1.6 million. There was also a herniated disc at L4, L5, but there was a knee replacement though. And there was another one where there was a shoulder rotator cuff injury, and that was 1 million. Here's one. Fall at a construction site. There was a arthroscopic injury to the shoulder, and that one was 800,000, but that was a settlement. Yeah, so I hope that's helpful. It's it's kind of a lot of different cases. So Danya Jones says, "Hey everyone, pray for California." Oh yeah, it's so terrible what's happening with the fires. Yeah, hopefully they can get that under control. That's just horrific. And let's see. Canada says 5-level fusion in Florida. Well, I mean, a 5-level fusion is probably going to be into the millions. So I think we did, right? Recently, we just did some cases in Florida. So it's probably going to be like those that we saw. There were some like there was one for like 8 million, right? That was a fusion one. So yeah, probably something like that, I think. Can you explain what's going on in California with the water? I'm lost. Well, I'm not too familiar. I know they're trying to put out, right? They say that the California firefighters are some of the best in the world. So hopefully they're able to get it under control, but it's terrible. Come along with Uncle Joe. Thank you so much for also bicep tendon. Bicep tendon on the dominant arm. Yeah. Felipe Lopez, my IME lasted 5 minutes. Is that a good thing? Yeah, I mean, that's what they do, right? Because they have the report already written where they say, hey, it's not caused by the crash or the fall, it's caused by degenerative disc disease, which is basically is the normal painless aging process. So they want to blame it on, anything else except the trauma. And then they just kind of plug in your name, and that's why they only take 5 minutes. But it's good to have like a watchdog, somebody who goes with you, so then that person could actually document what they did. Because then when you go to trial, you want to expose them and you want to, call them out and say, like, you only spent 5 minutes with me. And then, you make them look ridiculous. And you always say, no one has ever heard, right? Because you get transcripts on these guys, and that's all they do. They testify. Like the last one I did, he actually had like an office, and in the office, that's what he did. He just like saw people and just wrote these reports that no one's hurt. And it's like a business, but he hasn't actually treated any patients or done any actual doctor's work in like 20 years. It's crazy. Okay, let's see. We try to go through these. Can you search Sacramento, California, torn meniscus, arthroscopic surgery, and patellar tendinosis, please? Yeah, let's do that. Oh, slip and fall. Okay, let's do a search. Let's take a look. California, Sacramento. That's Sacramento County, right? I think that's what it's called. Sacramento. Sometimes the county is the same name as the city. Sometimes it's not. So it's like you have to know. You have to be local, know what's going on. Okay, Sacramento County, California. And you said slip and fall. So I could just put like premises. So premises really encapsulates all those kinds of cases like slip, trip, all the premises type cases. And then you said arthroscopic surgery with a meniscus, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah, so that'll be probably under knee. Yeah, meniscus tear. And then surgery. Yeah, actually. Oh, look, only 2 documents. That's not so many. Sprinkler in Midway tripped up grandmother attending a carnival. September of 2001, 58-year-old homemaker attended a carnival and Midway Fund, and she tripped on some kind of sprinkler, and then the x-rays showed that she had a knee tear with arthroscopy. 190,000. And then the other one was a 29-year-old employee who was walking through a PetSmart, slipped in a puddle of unidentified liquid on the floor, and it fell on her left knee, also an arthroscopy. That one was 0, though. But maybe we can go back and tweak it a bit if I get rid of premises liability, because meniscus tear with surgery is pretty common. No, actually, for some reason in Sacramento there aren't that many. If I get rid of premises liability, I see only 10 cases. And if you go by amount, the biggest one is 3.6 million. That one is an arthroscopy also, but there's also other injuries. There's a decompression, a laminectomy, a discectomy, loss of consortium. The next one is 935,000, but that one has other injuries too, like cubital tunnel syndrome, open reduction, internal fixation. Then there's the 190, we did that one. The 138, that one is more of an arthroscopy. That's a bicycle crash. 5,000, police motorcycle said driver was on cell phone before accident. That one was only 5,000. Here's one, plaintiff alleged a meniscal tear in a slip and fall at a pet store. Oh, we did that one, that's 0. Motorist admitted backing into plaintiff, but challenged injuries. So that's some kind of car crash with arthroscopy to the knee. That one was 0 also. Driver argued pedestrian wasn't injured. And that one was a defense verdict, 0. A lot of them turned out to be 0. So yeah, so we did that one. Okay, so we did that one. Okay, Cole says, I'm doing pro se, don't have $4,500 to pay for doctor deposition. Judge wants doctor to testify. What can I do? I mean, you could try to subpoena the doctor, but I don't know if you can, like, subpoena him and just, hold him to his report. And because when you subpoena them, they have to come to court, right, pursuant to the subpoena. And then you just, if you have their medical records, you could ask them questions from the medical records if you're doing it pro se. They won't be happy about it, right? You just pay them the subpoena fee, whatever that is, like $50 but that you save $4,500. Kayon Ward says, I just texted you. Okay, I'll take a look. I'll respond to those. Nayslayer, not high New York City verdicts, but the policy is over 1 million, so I'm optimistic. No, yeah, New York City, I think you should be okay. MVP, are artificial disc replacements lower in value compared to ACDF? I think they are, but not that much lower. They still command pretty substantial value. And here's a question. Thanks for everything. I listen to you all the time. From Mr. Miss Tyan. Oh, thank you. Thank you so much. Rear end by Amazon. What happened to this? Went down too far. Rear end by Amazon. Cervical laminoplasty, C2 through 7, and 2 epidural shots, Queens, New York. Oh, wow. So that's from C2 to C7. So it's like a 5 level. That's pretty, that should be like multiple. I just did one similar where I had, was it C4 down to T1? And I think that one went for like 3.5 million as a settlement. So yours should be around there. But if you got rear-ended by Amazon, Amazon should have a lot of coverage. It might even be more. It could be like 5 million or more. You have to make sure, though, you have the right trial lawyer. It's being worked up right. If you want, just text me. I'm happy to do a consultation. It's 347-566-9595. I'll drop it in the chat as well. You could text me. RG Society says Miami, Florida. Oh, that's the case from the beginning, right? All the way from the beginning. Okay, let me try to come back to that one. Let me see if anyone else has anything. Mr. Hassan says, do you know how much insurance farmers on a tractor? Well, it's going to be different for each tractor. You just have to find out in your case, and then they'll tell you. And then Russ says 1 ESI, I feel 100%. C4, C5 cervical. Yeah, it should settle if it's just an ESI. That's not so terrible. Someone says they want to sue a bunch of doctors, but if they have the same medical malpractice insurance, will that be easier? It could be. It could be easier. Yeah, absolutely. Michael Jordan says, Arkady Live, set the standard for true man and board certified trial attorney. Oh, thank you so much. And nice jacket. Oh, thanks. Yeah, it's cold. It's cold in New York. It's like 20 degrees. Let's break out the sweatshirts. Okay, let me see if I have try to do 1 or 2 more. I have to run soon, but let me see if I could do 1 or 2 more. Do surgery recommendations help your case? Yes, definitely. They definitely help your case. I mean, having the surgery is going to help even more, but medical need for surgery is better than nothing. Hassan says, my case started with 3 spine injections, 6 months of physical therapy, ended with a micro discectomy, 3 injections in the foot, Any verdicts? Yeah, but you have to tell me where, because I have to search a specific place. But yeah, definitely. I mean, that's a pretty typical injury, microdiscectomy, injections. Yeah, I mean, New York, that would be like a few 100,000 to possibly 1 million. Can I file a lawsuit for a false evacuation notice causing a panic attack? I live in Los Angeles. I'm not sure about that. I don't think so. I just do personal injury, so I'm not too familiar. But I know government, it's hard to sue the government, right? Because they have immunity. So you might not be able to. Okay, I have to run. Let me go back. I promised to do that case, right, for RG Society. So that was Miami, right? And RG, let me go back and try to see if I can find it. RG. That was the case with a fusion, right? Mm-hmm. Okay, let's take a quick look. Let's just do that one. And so we'll go to Florida. We'll go to Florida. We'll go to Miami. I know it's not called Miami, right? It's like, is it Dade? I forget. Miami is, yeah, Dade County, right? Okay. Dade County. Actually, it's called Miami-Dade County. I guess just Dade County is something else. Okay. So yeah, so we have that, and then we're going to do fusion. And this was a cervical fusion, right? Yeah, cervical. Okay. So we'll go to neck, and then we'll go to fusion. Yeah, let's see what they have here for that. Yeah, they have 30 cases. So the average is 903,000. The high is 3.6 million. If you go by date, the most recent, December of 2022, but it was 0. That was a car crash. There's one for 906,000 in 2022 in November. A scooter rider injured by a low-hanging branch, dislodged by a truck, and that was a cervical fusion. And I don't think they had too many other injuries, so 906. Here's one with a cervical fusion, as well as some lumbar herniations, trigger point injections, epidurals, things like that, and it's 1.2 million. Actually, it was 1,234,127. So it was like 1, 2, 3, 4. 1,234,127. It should have been 567. Then it would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. But anyway, it was August of 22. It was a nice result, I think. Pretty good. 1.2 million. Yeah, it's usually like what they go for, a little bit over 1 million. Sometimes if you have other, like I was saying before, right? If you add the medical costs, if you add the wages, if you have like a compelling human story about how it affected your life, it might be more. It might be much more, right? It might be into the 2, 3, 4 million. Here's 1.8 million. This was a cervical fusion 2 level. This was a premises liability. There was a freshly painted sidewalk and someone fell. So that's actually pretty good because those aren't that easy, premises liability cases. Here's one where they said the surgery was not related to the rear end crash, and even though they had a cervical fusion, and it was 150,000. Here's one with a truck accident causing injuries, 868,000. And another one with a shopper's fall was a result of being hasty, not the puddle, and that was 266,000. 800,000 auto accident with this fusion. 1,022,000. Passenger said his driver was speeding and ran a red light, cervical fusion. 500,000. Supermarket staff ignored a spill, and a shopper fell. 0. Mall owners argued a plaintiff staged a water heater accident. Motorist and scooter driver faulted each other for a crash. 2.5 million. That was a cervical fusion. So yeah, so that probably gives you a little bit of a sense of what they go for. I think it was pretty much the high six figures, like 700, 800,000. The lowest one is actually, according to this, is 150, right? The highest is 3.6. The average is 1.2, and the median is 903,000. Just like so, you have a value range. Okay, I hope this was helpful. This is like a new series, so we could do, we could keep doing this if this is helpful. This is like verdicts, so we go and we do verdicts, and we talk about it. So all I would need is like, if you know, just like briefly the type of case, brief injuries, your city, and I could do these searches and we could talk about these verdicts. Okay, everyone, please like and subscribe to our channel. Let us know what questions you have, and we are here for you. Our goal is helping serious injury victims and families. All the best. Have a great weekend. Happy New Year to everyone, and bye-bye.